Welcome to All Things Moore County, Moore County's weekly radio show highlighting the many facets of the Sandhills. That includes real estate, lifestyle, community and neighborhoods. And now from 4 Properties, here's your host, Bill Sahadi.
Good morning. Welcome to the talk show, All Things Moore County. We have a show today that is kind of near and dear to my heart, and we called it Revisiting Your Childhood Home. How many of us have grown up and, lost our folks and always have a draw to their hometown or the home they grew up in as kids. And my 2 guests today have something to share about that. Adrianne Farron is a real estate broker with Berkshire Hathaway, but as part of her skill set, she does a lot of design work, a lot of consulting work with homeowners like me, who rely on her judgment and a lot of calls that she makes. And Stefan Stuber is my main guest, and Stefan is one of 7 children who grew up in a house since the mid-1960s over at 120 North Valley Road in Southern Pines. And I had a chance to meet with Stefan this morning prior to the taping of the show. And back in October of 2018, he lost his mother. And so he, like my siblings, we became, orphans. Meeting him over at the house, which I had purchased back in September of 2019, we had undergone an 8-month renovation on the home. So it meant a lot to me that he would come down, and Nicola Squires from Carolina Full Motion had the privilege of videotaping the home when it went on the market for sale, which we'll call the before, and then videotaping it for me after Adrianne put 8 months of toil into the home with me. And I pretend to take the credit, but I shouldn't. So she has the before, the after. She has the demolition pictures. And Stefan, you did get a chance to see the videotape of the after, even though we had not met until this morning. But it's different when you actually got to physically go in the house and look at it yourself.
Yes.
Yes?
It was weird.
You were not born in the house, but you were a young child growing up in the house?
Yes.
And you had 7 kids. Your mom and dad raised 7 kids.
Mm-hmm.
When I bought the home, a lot of people told me stories about the Stuber family. Your dad was a pathologist, your mother was a nurse, and people like Camp Thomas, Bonnie Bell at the time, they remember, I guess, pool parties, and your backyard was famous.
Yeah.
A lot of stories, a lot of memories.
Yes, lots. So Hamp and I used to play in a band together, so that was fun.
You played
too.
with Hamp?
Yeah.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, because he actually did the appraisal on the house. Describe the house. It was built in 1940, mid-century home.
It's a ranch-style home. It's no basement, no upstairs, and I remember when we first moved in, we had no furniture, we had no carpeting, no rugs, and it was a terrazzo floor everywhere. And we would run as fast as we could, and with our socks on, see how far we could slide.
Right.
That was a lot of fun. But it was just huge to me, and it still is in a way, because it just you can walk from one end of it to the other.
Right.
And if you do that 5 times,
you need a shower.
That's about a quarter mile. It felt like it anyway. And of course, it's got a really big yard. It did not have a pool when we first moved in, and that was done a little bit later. I can't remember exactly.
Yeah.
Probably about 7 or 8 years after we had been there. And that's what really made a lot of kids in the neighborhood. We got a lot of. We were real popular. With that addition.
Yeah, I bet you were. A lot of parties there.
I remember my brother Joey, who recently passed away, I remember they had a graduation party one time for him.
Uh-huh.
And that would have been 1974. And I remember somebody streaking at that party. That was back in when the streaking. You remember the streaking days?
I do.
Somebody struck at that party.
Well, Adrianne, when she first came to look at the house, I don't think either one of us realized how much we were going to try to undertake. But what we tried to do was keep the home spirit original. But the demolition process was something special, wasn't it?
It was a lot more involved than I thought we intended to get.
Right.
I really didn't intend to move as many walls as we moved. We were going to try to keep as much of it intact as possible.
Right. And
then you take one wall down and you find some things and you realize you need to take a little more down. And so it sort of grew.
One of the differences between a man and a woman when they look at a house like that, she would talk to me about walls, and I would be very focused on, okay, do we move this wall here or this wall there? That's all I was thinking about. She would look and say, I wonder what that planter was for. I wonder what that, in other words, almost like a forensic designer trying to figure out the story about your mother. I'm
actually very curious to know whether or not she actually used it, because it was only full of rocks when we saw it. And I'm hoping that there was a time when she had it full of flowers or full of...
The planter that she used to actually have plants in was the one, if you're looking out the backyard to the left. Mm-hmm. What did you call that room?
The Carolina room.
The Carolina room. So if you're looking out, it would have been on the far left.
Right.
Okay.
Near the dining room table. She always had something going on in there. The one in the front, as you come in the front door, I don't think she ever really...
Was that just a rock garden?
Yeah, it was more like a rock garden. And she actually had... it was kind of like a small bird bath with an angel coming up on it, and then she had different colored rocks inside there.
Okay.
So I think she used it, but not as a planter per se.
So what about the planter in the living room where you put the mahogany bookshelf? Was that always full of because it had an irrigation system underneath it?
We never really utilized that as a planter.
Okay.
That I can recall.
Okay.
It was after my father died when my mother asked my brother John, I told you about, he lives in Boone. He came in and got some more of those wrought iron, I don't know what you call them, railings.
Yeah.
And he put 2 more in the middle section of it, right where you have the kitchen, the entrance to the kitchen, where that little the box of mahogany, right at that part, he just put in some more of those wrought iron and then put cedar shelving in there.
Okay.
One of the things that my father did over a long period of time was he got books, these really nice classic literature books, that you can, I can't remember the name of the press that puts them out, but it's like $80 a book or something. It's like a club, and you pay, monthly, and they send you a book. And so over the years, he had amassed a number of classic books. There's War and Peace, complete works of Shakespeare, Of Mice and Men, Alice in Wonderland, just all these beautiful books, and they're all really hard leather bound. I actually got those books as part of my, inheritance on that, and I still have them, and I really love those. I'm a voracious reader, so those were important to me.
So it was used as a bookshelf even then? It
was used as a bookshelf, and then to the sides, my mom was a Hummel collector.
Oh, yeah.
So she had a bunch of Hummels.
So that was mine, actually.
Along there.
Yeah. Figurines and such.
Right.
For the listeners who don't know, this is a 20-foot long structure. Right. It's at the one end of the living room, and it created a bit of a hallway behind it. But substantial piece sitting in the room. And it made me think of the Brady Bunch house and their planters that they had inside the house on the TV show.
Right. But that hallway became wasted space because in the built in 1940, the master bathroom was the size of a minute.
Yeah.
And Stefan actually went in and looked at the bathroom and saw where you borrowed the hallway for some of the closet. I mean, it was an intelligent use of space.
Oh, yeah.
But you remember how tiny that your parents' bathroom
Oh,
was.
yeah, it was very small.
They had to, like, get along really well, didn't they? One sink. I mean, it was tiny.
Yes, they were very compatible. And the closet itself was just, you could
claustrophobic.
Two people, coming or walking toward each other, somebody would have to turn around. That's how skinny it was. But I remembered the little transit above there.
The transom window in the closet.
Yes.
By keeping it, I mean, that was a right thing to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, my dad. If I don't know if you want to indulge.
I
me
do.
Story or
no,
something.
I do.
Oh, please.
But
Yeah.
my mother and father, they used to have pretty nice parties with local people in Southern Pines.
Yeah.
And they would move all the furniture, and if there was a carpet, they would roll it up and open up that terrazzo floor, and they would dance.
Mm-hmm.
And my dad figured out a way to record. He had a reel-to-reel tape deck, and he figured out a way to record albums onto the tape deck.
Mm-hmm.
And so he would record all these old, I can't even remember the names of these folks that were.
Yeah.
But he would get the reel-to-reel, because the reel-to-reel would go over and over and over, and they could go all night with a couple of tapes. Whereas, with an album, you gotta pick the needle up, put a new one on, and all that.
Right.
So that's why he did it, so he could have these parties, and I can remember those.
So your parents, they liked it because the house, the layout of the house lends itself to entertaining.
Yes, especially that living room.
Oh my gosh! So he was impressed with the raised ceiling in the living room, where we had to replace all those trusses because of the sagging.
Right.
And
another unintentional consequence of having to take out so much of the space.
So the living and dining area, it was 36 or 38 feet across the entire room. It was like a ballroom.
Yeah.
But by raising the ceiling on half of the room and leaving the 8-foot ceiling on the other half, it sort of created a room by the height, not by a wall. But it still looks like a home where you would have a lot of people go through there and not feel like you were crowded at all.
Right.
He told me that the carport was a 3-car carport, and his father built that room.
Yeah.
Just put an oil tank in there.
He had an oil tank, and he filled it with diesel.
Yep.
And then he cut a little box in the wall where he could open up the little door, and then he would pull his little hose through there and fill his car up.
Yeah, he would fill he had a
Mercedes
diesel, and that's what he used that room for.
So to fill that tank, you'd get trucks come
he
to
would
the
have
house?
Yes, he would have, I don't know, McNeil Oil Company or somebody come by.
That's right.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Yeah. The another thing he noticed was the floor in the living room. He thought all that was coming up, the hardwood, because underneath there it's all terrazzo. And he said, before I could even volunteer, when he looked at the kitchen, he said, getting that wood floor up must have been a real bear. It was beyond anything. How did you know it would be hard to get up? Did you remember?
Well, because I remember when they installed it, and they were just, it was gluing it right on top of the terrazzo. So
Yeah.
I said, well, that's never coming up. So
It came up in splinters and toothpicks.
Yeah.
It took
And
a
that
long
was
time.
that was just something. I'm not sure what my mom. That happened almost probably a year after my father passed. And that was in '99, and that was just something. Was a preference of hers. She wanted hardwood floors.
She wanted hardwood floors.
By God, that's what she did.
Yeah, she won that discussion because
And it went all the way back to what I call the pool room.
Right. The pool room is a Carolina
room, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what's the room on the back side? You called the one off the pool the Carolina room.
That's the Carolina room. Yeah.
Well, I'm talking about, when I say the pool room, I'm talking about the room all the way in the back towards the garage. in the suite that you have for the,
Gotcha. So the cottage that
Yeah.
we set up, that was a pool room. That's now the kitchen and living room.
we called
That's
it
what
a
he's-
pool room because there
that's
was a
what he's-
pool table in it.
Okay.
Are you with me?
Now
It's in the cottage. The
And
living,
we played a lot of pool.
did you really?
Yes.
So
yes.
So with the tenant that we have in place, there's nowhere to walk, as you could see. But it looked to me like your dad had a woodworking shop in there too. He had a desk, he had tools, and
Yes.
you guys kept everything there intact. I know Joey came in and helped us. He took a lot of the stuff out of the house.
Right.
Prior
That
to
was
the
like
closing.
one of the last things that got moved out.
Yeah. Let's come back in the second set. We did walk in the backyard. He was pointing out things that, because he used to take care of the grounds for his parents. You're number 3 of 7,
Yes.
and Joey was number 1?
Yes.
Okay. And your other siblings don't live here in Southern Pines, in the area? They're all spread all over the place?
Yes.
But you're all united by the fact that, you think they would ever want to come down and look at the house?
I would hope so.
I would
and
too.
I think after I've met you and we've talked a lot, and you're very approachable. You actually would love it if they would come and see it.
Yeah, you're right. I would.
And I think if I were to tell them that, you might get a little participation in that regard.
Okay. There's
I'll
something.
tell them.
There's something about preserving a home and keeping the spirit the same. I wish people had done that with the home we grew up in as kids. It didn't always happen. And you showed me your childhood home in Buffalo.
Yes.
But we all have a curiosity about where we came from.
My home had a fire, and we went back after they had put it back together from the fire.
Okay.
And I realized it wasn't my home anymore. It had changed so much. And one of the things I was really hoping was that when you, Stefan, went back to your home, that it would still feel like home, even though it was a little different.
It does.
It does feel
No,
like
regardless of how drastic the changes are, and the wow factor, and
right.
the upgrades, etc.
Yeah.
It still it still felt just like it's always been. I mean that sincerely.
Yeah. I want to
Just
come
better because you've obviously put some money into the renovation and some really cool ideas.
Just a lot of goodwill. Good ideas, goodwill. This is All Things Moore County. Our guest is Stefan Stuber, who was the childhood resident. His family grew up at 120 North Valley, and I've had the privilege of purchasing the home and bringing it up to today's speed, but keeping an eye on its origins, and it's been a privilege to do it. We'll be right back. Welcome back to our second set. We're talking about revisiting your childhood home. Stefan Stuber is our guest. He grew up in the home that I had the privilege to renovate in the last year and a half with Adrianne Farron. And it was the first time he had a chance to come back and see the home in person. Adrianne, 8 months was a long time to renovate a home. Fortunately, I didn't have to live there while it was going on. But it was an intriguing home to you, and you kind of got me. You understood what I was trying to do, and you made a lot of decisions about spacing, bringing the home to the 21st century, even though it was built in 1940. Can you just walk through some of the features and the things that were important to you to keep? Because you would just give me all these decisions to make, where it would be yes or no. But you've really created a lot of space, more fluidity as we go. I'd just love to hear, because I know you're very cerebral about it, and she doesn't make a point of view or an opinion without having a reason, and she's ready to back it up 200%, which is one of the things I really like.
Yeah, I have a tendency to speak in shorthand. I'll
Okay.
tell you my decision, and then if you ask, I'll give you my reasons.
Right. But it's not just, you're not just taking the path of least resistance.
No, it's always well thought out.
Yeah.
When you first took me to see the house and you said that you'd already pulled the trigger. You weren't asking for permission. You already knew that you wanted that house.
Right.
And you asked if I would help you along with it. And one of the most important things to me was to walk through it with you and find out what was important to you. Get your vision for the home. What were the elements of the house that drew you to it and really made you want to make that your own? So that throughout the whole process, as we took the house back down to its bones, that we could bring it back with those elements intact.
Right.
So every decision had to be made keeping in mind that the original feel of the house had to remain. If it didn't, we'd lost everything.
Right.
So refinishing the terrazzo floors, even though they were a 1940s color, not necessarily a design choice that we would make today, was the right decision for that house. And it's one of the original elements that I think is one of the most striking things. Keeping all the planters was, I think, the right thing to do. Again, 1940s, but then bringing it up, you can put your herb garden in there next to your kitchen. One of the most important things for you was your master bath.
Yeah. Was that the most fun project of all? No.
That was the most fun project of all.
Okay.
Not just giving you the space,
Right.
but giving you a showcase.
Right.
And knowing your affinity for
Yeah.
your hometown of Brooklyn,
Yeah.
and your affinity for shave shops and that sort of thing.
Right.
I really wanted the feel of that room to be 1940s Brooklyn shave shop
Yeah.
type feel.
Without the accent.
Yes. I can't do the accent.
Did that bathroom, did that visual blow you away as you walked in?
Well,
You didn't say anything.
I thought you were kind of weird with that, with your fascination, your collection of shaving products.
You think it was a little over the top?
Yes.
Do you know the difference between like someone who's just obsessive and someone who collects and then someone who's a hoarder? Do you think I've
Oh,
walked
I
through
wouldn't
that?
call you a hoarder.
No? Okay.
It definitely looks like a collection of
Yeah, okay.
memorabilia, if you will, yeah.
Okay.
Which
Yes.
is good.
So she had a vision for that bathroom and how it would look, and you'll notice all the bathrooms were done in the same monochromatic. Well, you had the black and white tile
Yeah,
throughout.
black and white.
All black and white.
Why did you do
Yeah.
that? I mean, that was a purposeful.
That was purposeful. It was 1940s. They were actually just beginning to come out with colors.
Right.
Black and white was all there had been. And so to keep the feel of the house and to keep it very classic, because that never ages, black and white will always be something.
Right.
So the room could look very updated and still retain
Yeah.
the original color scheme.
Yeah. Stefan, when he walked into what is now the office that had a cork floor, he had no idea there was terrazzo under there.
Yeah, there's terrazzo under that entire house.
That's crazy.
Aren't there heated pipes underneath the terrazzo?
So, yes, and we didn't disengage it. It had been disengaged, but there was a pipe coming up in the floor near the kitchen where that hutch was that I showed you, the Dr.
Right.
Bush hutch.
Right.
And we just cut the pipe off.
Right.
I guess you could go back in there and find it and open it, but those floors were heated.
Yep.
That's crazy. All water, hot water heated.
Mm-hmm.
So as a kid, you never had cold feet. Is that right?
No.
He didn't know the builder, but he also knew the story of the feuding between the owners of, I guess, what's today known as Loblolly, which and I heard it piecemeal, and Joey also talked a little bit about it. But what can you recall about it?
I could hardly anything. But
Okay.
I remember Joey telling me one time.
Yeah.
And Kemp knew stuff about it. I think I might have heard it from Kemp instead of Joey.
So Kemp's home was built by the same builder that built 120 North Valley.
Yeah.
I don't know which home was built first. I'm going to guess it was Kemp's home.
I think that's the case. And then that's when the feud started. And then the bamboo wall came up. And
Right.
then that guy just decided to build
Right.
the 120.
Right. When was the last time you lived in the home? How old were you? Were you in college? Did you?
Oh, when did I move out?
Yeah.
That would have been 82.
Oh my
1982.
goodness. Oh my goodness.
But I went back a lot because, I was in Greensboro. It's only an hour and a half away. So I would go back to visit my mom and do yard work.
Your mom loved the house?
Oh, yeah. We all loved it.
Did you?
Yeah.
See, that's so nice because those memories are yours forever. And that's how we feel, how I felt about the house we grew up in, where you got life lessons, you got disciplined, you started to date, you did all these things as adolescents, and then someone comes in and takes the house and turns it into something else so it's not recognizable, like your house after the fire.
Yeah, I was really disappointed by that.
Yeah.
So I was very hopeful that when Stefan got a chance to see the house, he wouldn't have that same reaction.
Most kids, when they grow up and they go back to where they grew up, they always remember their house to be smaller because when they were kids, everything looked big.
Yeah.
But you didn't have that problem because this house was just, it ran on and on and on.
Yeah, I really feel like it's just as it was, just like, upgraded, facelifted, whatever. I mean, we knew the ceilings were, going. We knew there was a problem.
Yeah.
We didn't have the means or, it wasn't in the, the plan, the cards to do what you did. That's why as I told you several times, I'm very happy that we connected somewhere through Bob, I guess.
Yeah.
I feel lucky to have, because I was the executor of the will when my parents were both. And the way people flip stuff these days,
they do it. They do it.
They'll take your house for the money. Your house is only worth what somebody's willing to pay for it. Right. Basically, I mean, there is some adjustment. You guys are realtors. I'm not, but you never feel like you get what you think it's worth because it's so valuable to you. And then somebody flips it and then sells it for 3 times more than what they paid for it. So anyway, I'm glad that we were able to connect with you, Bill. I think you and I've said this to you before. Yeah. You want to live there. You like the house. You've been looking at the house for 20 years. Yeah. And you always had an eye on the house, and you did a fantastic job.
Thank you.
And she did. I feel like it's the best thing that could have possibly happened to our house. Yeah. And I feel like, my siblings, I think, feel the same way.
He brings up a really important point that sometimes when a seller sells a home, it's important to them who they sell it to. Mm-hmm. My mom taught me that when I was a kid, and I thought she was just nuts. Crazy at it, but she was right. And you had a lot of interest in the house. There were 2 or 3 offers that came in on it. And what Joey communicated through you was that they did not want to sell it to somebody who was going to just come in and renovate it and sell it again because the house needed some work. I mean, there was no question about it. They wanted to sell it to somebody who was going to make it their home because it was going to honor their memory of the home. Mm-hmm. I see that a lot with sellers today. They might not always take the highest offer. They'll take the offer that puts the people in place that they want to put in place. That's something that it's good for us to always, keep our eye on.
Yeah, I wish that the people who had bought the house that I grew up in had cared about the house. Yeah. But they bought it for other reasons. Yeah. And that became evident, and they pretty much destroyed the family feel of what I had grown up with. So.
Well, you have a great talent for listening to other people, to hearing their listening, and then putting it together. And you did it, but you can do it on all kinds of homes, newer homes, older homes. But I leaned on her a ton. I mean, a ton. And I just said, okay, if she says okay, I'm happy, I'm good. And
You were a good client. You took direction.
I very obedient.
Yes.
But also, yeah, I'm pleased and I'm delighted that you came down. I wanted to share it with your family, and we will get the video to you of this with the pictures and such, because it's a keepsake. Because as far as I'm concerned, I'm just living there. I'm a steward of the home, but it was your home. And you have 50 some odd years with that home, more actually.
Yep.
So it just,
and it was really the first. My father bought a house on Indiana, but we only stayed there for about a year.
Yeah.
And then we found that house at 120 North Valley.
Yeah.
And he got the job at Moore Memorial, and that was it. That was it for him.
Stefan, thanks for coming down to see us and coming in and sharing the story with us. Adrianne, good luck. You've got a lot of talent, and I hope a lot of people find out about you.
Thank you.
And we're going to come back in the third set. We're going to actually speak to an old friend, Peggy Taphorn, from the Temple Theater, and how she has worked through the last year of COVID and what's happening at the Temple Theater. Always an interesting guest. So this is All Things Moore County. We'll be right back.